So this is where we left off last time. We created the h1 header and then two icons that are two action links. So this is the bars icon, and if we click this one, it opens up the sidebar, and if we click the times icon, the sidebar is closing. And what we want to do in this video is we want to populate the sidebar with the different headers. So if we remove the page views visualization, the page views action link is supposed to pop up in here instead of down here. And then if we click in the sidebar the specific visualization, so page views for example, it should pop back in. And what we're also going to do is we're going to modularize the sidebar. And we'll be starting off by modularizing the sidebar first. So here we have this entire div where we're styling the sidebar. So what we're going to do is we're going to create .r file with the sidebar module. So we'll say sidebar UI takes the ID, and then in there we have the namespace, ID, and then in here we have a tag list where we just copy paste the stuff from the .r file. So now from there, what we have to do is basically what happened now is when we go into the JS file, we have here this function that if we click a visualization, so the delete action link, we're going to get the ID, and then we're going to create an action link with the previous ID of the visualization, and then we're adding the action link after the last panel if there's no action link available, or we're going to add the action link after if there are already existing action links after the last action link in the application. So this one figured out if what the last visualization was, and then adds the action link in the application if there is no action link yet. But what we want to do now instead is we can basically copy paste this here, and what we want to do now is in here we want to add the first action link in the sidebar if there's none yet after the charts header, so after the h1 header here. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this an ID, let's say header sidebar, and let's wrap this into NS, and then to ensure that the namespace is unique, and then I'm going to copy paste the header sidebar ID, and in the JS file we're going to place the action link after the h1 header, and we're going to save this. And then what we can do is we can get the sidebar UI, and we're going to put that in here, and we'll give this ID equals sidebar. So now what Shiny is doing is it gets this sidebar ID and puts it in front of the IDs where we wrapped it around namespace. So this basically would say in the HTML would say sidebar header sidebar. So that's why what we have to do now, we have to copy paste the sidebar, and then in the JS file we have to add this in here so that it works later. What we can create next is then the server. So we'll say sidebar server. This time it only gets the ID, and then we'll say Shiny module server ID, And then from there we'll say function input, output, and session. And then what we're going to have in here is a render UI. So if we start the application and specific visualizations aren't in the application yet, then they appear as action links in the sidebar. So what we'll have to do is we go into here, into the main visualization module, and what we're going to do, instead of displaying 3 applications upon application start, we're only going to show 2 applications, 2 visualizations, and the third visualization is the one action link in the sidebar that can be moved into the application if the user wants it to. So after the action link here, then we have a shiny UI output, and then the output ID is going to be, let's call this sidebar visualization. And then in the server we have a render UI, and in this render UI we're creating an action link. So what we'll do is going to use map2 from per, and then one vector is going to be the ID, and then .y is going to be the name of the action link. And then we'll give this an anonymous function. We'll say div. We give this a class equals, we'll say added underscore .x. So this is the unique identifier of the action link. And then in here we'll say action link, and then the input ID is going to be the letter, label is going to be channel groupings in this case, and then the class is going to be paste 0, and then what we'll say is, let's see, here in the scripts.js file, so the class is going to be added btn. So if we basically click that class added btn, then here in the JS file we're going to figure out which action link has been clicked by getting the ID and then removing that action link and sending stuff back to Shiny to create the visualization. So now we can remove this and save this. We'll save this as sidebar underscore module. And then we have the sidebar UI. And then we also need the sidebar server. We'll save this. And I think that should be everything. Save this as well. And then let's see if that worked. So now only 2 visualizations pop up if we first load the app, the page views one. and also the device category one. So now if we click on this bars icon, we get the channel groupings here. So if we click on the channel groupings, yeah, the visualization gets put back into the application, and then the action link appears here after charts. Now this action link should appear after this one as well. Okay, so it works as expected. Maybe we can do some styling of the action links. So what we can do is we can go into the CSS file, and then what we can do is we have here the sidebar module, and we want to style the action links. So what we can do is we can say .nav, and then the action link. Color, we can give it a white color. We can give it a little bit bigger font size. And let's see how that looks. So if we open up the application and the sidebar, we get the channel groupings, page views, also the device category. So what we can do now is let's get rid of the underlinements. So what we can do is we can say in here text decoration is none. Save this, we can run it again, and this is how it looks. We could style it some more, but it looks decent so far. So that's going to be the end of this video. And again, if you want to read up on my blog about this video, there's a link in the description, and I'll see you next time.